about the music.
Well, that was some boring music.
Spike?
Come on, where's the Justin Bieber? Where's the Katy Perry? Where's the Fall Out Boy?
Noddle, you have witch powers. Turn him into a chipmunk and feed him to the owl outside.
I will do no such thing. We're here to talk about our website.
HomeCanineNeutering.com?
What?
No! InvaderPet.com, where people can check out our comic strips or locate bookstores selling bookmarks with our comics on them. So, listeners, want to see comics of me, Noddle the Witch, my pets Kaylee Cat, and Spike Beagle? Go to InvaderPet.com and check us out.
Seriously, though, you guys really have a canine neutering website?
Magical Things offers fantasy art for festival and everyday living, featuring the fine arts and craft creations of Marjorie Delaney on practical printed products such as journals, mugs, costuming, wearable art, formal wear, and accessories. We also carry a line of magical supplies, including candles, oils, herbs, and limited ritual items. All items are created in a scenic studio space in Culpeper, Virginia, and available throughout the world online, as well as at festivals and events. Magical Things offers custom creations too, such as costuming, illustrations, and more. Come visit us at magicalfantasy.com.
Music. There's Saya Magan, Mysterious. Very classic over there in Israel. Who was going to come on the show next Wednesday, but he emailed me 2 weeks ago saying he had a gig and he took off. So we'll get him back on the air when he comes back and he tells me all about it.
Yay.
Bet you anything he's on another cruise.
Maybe.
Because when I first found him on Music Summit, yeah, he said, "Oh, I'm on a cruise right now, but we can get on the show eventually when I get back from the cruise." Like, really? You're on a cruise without me? What's wrong with this picture? That's how our friendship started.
Do we have any travel agents out there? Because you should hook up Shells with a cruise.
Yeah. And put me on the same cruise as Shy, so that way we can do an interview. Talk about his stuff. It'd be great. So anyway. All right. So what else? Okay. So we talked already about, we had Mirko from Italy on the show. Mm-hmm. He was great. He kind of set the tone where we just relax, chill, talk about his music, talk about his next project coming up, and that he's not going professional with his music. He's basically doing as a hobby for fun. Have everyone enjoy his music too, which everyone has enjoyed it. So it's very awesome. And then on top of all that, we kind of started talking about Today in Music, hosted by Spider.
Mm-hmm.
Then we started talking about what?
We've talked about our other shows. Did we already mention that?
Yeah, I was about
Okay.
to until you. I thought you had something else to say, but
Okay. Let's get into a little bit of a topic here, actually, while we're at it. It's just something interesting that I've been kind of following pretty close. And I asked Mirko about it briefly. In Italy, from the way it sounds, doesn't seem too worried about the whole situation. And maybe they got the right about it. But let's talk about this UK situation, and specifically how it impacts musicians from Europe.
mm-hmm.
Because the way that I understand it now, and I admit I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to how the European Union actually works. I haven't really paid too much close attention to it. It was never a big subject of mine, so I'm kind of playing catch up here with everything. But from what I understand, if you live in one of the countries that's part of the European Union, then you have like a flat kind of visa thing that lets you travel between all the various member countries, and you have all these licenses that are basically good in all of the countries. So if you're a musician and you have some kind of travel visa and you live in one of the European Union countries, you can go to any of the countries as if like you were in the US and you were just crossing the state borders and going to different states. They'll check you at the border and then wave you on through because you have the right visa for it. Now, the way that a lot of musicians, and I don't want to say all musicians or even a majority because I don't really know. I haven't really studied it closely enough to get a baseline yet. But several of the musicians that I follow who are English-based musicians are now worried because they won't have that visa anymore. They would have to get a specific one from the UK to then allow them to travel into the European Union. And then, from what I gathered, it's almost like they would need to have that visa cleared with every single one of the countries that they might visit over there, rather than just being kind of waved through because it's all one big thing. So, by the sound of it, it seems like it makes things very complicated and very uncertain for musicians who are over in Europe right now.
Yeah, that does kind of seem kind of a problem situation. I mean, I had no clue what was going on. I had to ask you, what's going on? And so, just reading on what's going on with Facebook, how it's proceeding and how they're talking about it, I don't really fully understand why they separated to begin with, or what made them make a decision, or all that jazz. But now that they are separated and musicians are over there wanting to go over there and tour, even here in the States want to go over there and tour, they're going to have a hard time doing it. I mean, we have a hard time just going into Canada.
Well, to make things even more complicated is they had this vote and they had this referendum, but they're not actually separated yet. And that's part of a process apparently called Article 50, which is part of the European Union, where if it gets invoked, then that's the process by which you separate a member country from the European Union. And from what I gather, it hasn't started yet, and it might not start. It might. There's a possibility that the UK government could vote that down and decide to stay anyway, regardless of what the vote was, because it was just a referendum. It wasn't like a binding thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have, because over half of the UK, just a little over half, voted to leave. So what happens if you decide not to do it. Those people are going to be very upset, but at the same time, the people who voted to stay are very upset right now. So it's a really, really complicated kind of situation right now, and there's no real clear way of knowing exactly what's gonna happen until it happens. Really, I mean, we look at it from over here in the United States, and there's a lot of ways to look at it just super simple and just be like, oh yeah, well they got their independence, that's great, yeah. But I mean, we don't know exactly what that means for them, and maybe they didn't know what that means either. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but we are really kind of disconnected from that in a way, and I don't think we quite understand what's going on over there, really.
I don't really think they understand what's going on because they're voting for it and they don't even know what they're voting for. That's how I'm grasping the idea.
Well, another thing about it too is that a lot of people apparently who voted didn't actually think that their vote would count, and they apparently were just voting as a protest vote. Which, I mean, it's great to want to lift your voice out there, but a lot of it, if you're that jaded to the political system, and the political system has not worked for so long that you assume it's just not going to work anyway, and your vote isn't going to count, then the one time when it does work, you're kind of like, oh, well, that's too bad, because that's not what I wanted. So it's such a complicated kind of situation that you really don't know where to go with it.
That's kind of sucks, because I know for bands, regardless, if they tour international, it's very expensive to tour, either from going to international or the international bands come here. It's very, very expensive, and a lot of mess to begin with. I mean, they got to save all the money. And then they got to transport all their belongings to either country. Doesn't really matter which country it is. And they got to sit there in customs to make sure it's nothing illegal going through there. And then after that happens, you get a tour. That's if you can afford the rest of the tour. And you may be over here for about 6 months and go home because you're broke. And this has nothing to do with this international bands. This is for big bands too. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of bands have had to cancel segments of tour because they were barred from a country, not necessarily because they did anything wrong, but because maybe somebody didn't file the right papers or something just wasn't quite right, and it just took too long to sort through it, and there wasn't anything to be done. I mean, you can't force this stuff to go any faster, and that's your livelihood. And if it goes on too long, you kind of have to say, well, I did what I could, but it's time for me to go home.
Yeah. I mean, I have one of my musicians, I need to get him on the air here soon, too. His name is Johnny Smoke. He's very big, huge here in Auburn. And he just got home from I don't think he's gone for about a year and a half tour out there in England. Not just England, sorry, just not England, but he's out there international, just touring Europe, Sweden, London, Paris. He just left Paris right when the Paris attack happened. And then he just got home from doing all this tour, and I like to know how he's able to do all this and how much he had to save up, because I know that Black Pussy finally got out there and they wanted to go out there 4 years ago. It took them 4 years to save up to go on to a small little tour in Europe. So that tells me right there it's very expensive just to get out there.
Mm. And that just kind of adds, like, what happens next if this Article 50 goes through, and if the UK decides to definitely pull out of the European Union. I mean, what kind of ramifications is that going to have for musicians in that part of the world?
Exactly.
And we don't really know. I mean, it hasn't happened before, so it's all just kind of like new territory for everyone. So we're just like, oh, okay.
It's kind of like how the Berlin Wall kind of broke down too. East and West are together, and one side who's been really, structure is now free, don't know how to handle themselves. So